All right, here we go. I bring this up, Bob, because baseball, as I mentioned at the top of the show, it fixed something, right? It fixed pace of play. And a few years ago, you might remember, it fixed the home run derby, made it much better. Give me an idea then for the All-Star game. Go ahead.
Well, I'll preface it by saying that it was a really enjoyable All-Star game. Good baseball game. I liked the players mic'd, a terrific feeling throughout those several days in Seattle. So no complaint with the way it played out this year. And you've also got to just recognize realities. Viewing habits have changed. There's many more options than there used to be. If you're going to play interleague games, then the National League against the American League is not going to feel as special as it once did. And there's more player movement now, including among true all-star players, perennial all-stars. And so all of that is going to diminish the meaning of the all-star game. I don't think it's a great idea to have players wearing the same uniform, some of which look like pajamas. It used to matter when, this guy's my guy. He's an Angel. He's a Yankee. He's a Cardinal. He's a Brave. They're wearing their own uniforms. That was much cooler. I realize there's a commercial reason for doing that, but I think it diminishes it. The only change that I could think of, making the outcome and influence determining home field advantage in the World Series makes no sense to me.
Why does that make no sense? It definitely changed the game, Bob. You remember how it was managed year one, year two. It changed the game, just gave it a little purpose.
And do you want for that one night to have that affect the possible home field advantage?
Yes.
When a team wins? Yeah, wait a minute. When a team wins 110 games and then the sixth qualifier sneaks through what we know is a crapshoot, which is the tournament, and now they have an additional edge over the best team in baseball, the best way to do this, if you want to make it different and have it more meaning, international players against North American players.
Okay. Maybe. Bob, I would say there was a 111-win team last year. It didn't get to the World Series. So, it got knocked off anyway. I'm so much in favor of going back to that, but I know most people hate it. All right, fine. Bob, Hall of Fame weekend a week away. Barry Bonds spoke out recently. He was on the Hollywood Swinging podcast. And Bobby came as close as I've ever heard to actually addressing the issue. Here's the quote. I belong with my teammates in that Hall of Fame 100%. The dream is still there as long as there's a ballot for it. It can happen when I'm 60 or 70, whenever. Hopefully I don't have to wait that long. Hopefully I'm not dead. And then he goes on to say, here it is. Whether they were broken or not broken, there were rules, some rules. My era, there were no rules. Why is the Hall of Fame punishing me? It doesn't make sense. So, Bob, am I wrong? It's the first time I've heard him actually go the loosey-goosey defense, that, hey, there were no rules, which I think is ludicrous, but at least I heard him say something about it. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's an implicit recognition that he was part of that era. And when people say, why pick on Barry Bonds? Because he's at the top of the pyramid. He holds the single-season record, and he holds the all-time record. So that's the reason why he is a focus primarily. When he says, why is the Hall of Fame punishing me? The Hall of Fame has nothing to do with it at this point.
Right.
It's all the writers' votes, and he never got 75% through 10 years. I've said this many times. I would vote for Barry Bonds if I had a vote, but broadcasters do not have a vote. He was a transcendent player even before he apparently began taking PEDs in the late 90s. I just don't think it makes sense, especially when we know that there are a handful of players at least who are in there, who were heavy users of steroids, it's reasonable to assume, or dabbled in steroids at some point. I think that justice can be tempered by mercy. And when you look at his career, you look at Roger Clemens' career, it makes no sense to keep him out of the Hall of Fame. Another thought is this. Every time I hear Barry Bonds speak about himself or about the game of baseball, he's so insightful. Barry Bonds on hitting is the modern version of Ted Williams on hitting. He's obviously so intelligent. You look at that smile. He could have won everybody over during his career. I know there's a backstory and reasons for some resentment, his dad and whatnot, but perhaps, and it shouldn't because you're supposed to look at it objectively, but perhaps if to some of the writers he had been a bit more cordial, maybe he would have snuck over the 75%.
Well, Bob, I'm not with you on that. Now, look, he started at 36%. He ended at 66%. Actually, that's a lot of support. As, again, I'll quote Joel Sherman often says, if you're running for president, you win on 66%. But he's not getting 75%. So he's actually got a lot of support. And, Bob, I would say this, too. I'm glad that it went through, because it didn't have to happen so quickly, but they kind of let this go through at the Hall. They let it go to a Veterans Committee immediately coming off the battle. And those are not all, but kind of predominantly the ex-players, Hall of Fame players. Their vote was pretty clear, right? They're choosing not to honor this man.
Yeah, they announce anybody whose vote total is over 4 out of 16, and neither he nor Clemens passed even that minimum threshold.
Right.
But look, I said this forever. Barry got angry at me at one point because I just acknowledged what was obvious, like acknowledging water is wet. But a lot of these guys are on PEDs, and he was approaching Hank Aaron. And I said that as great as Bonds is, a lot of these numbers are inauthentic. That's not the same thing as passing a moral judgment or a criminal judgment. It's a baseball judgment.
Right.
As great as he was, we don't have to belabor this. Just look at his numbers up until the late 90s. They're first ballot Hall of Fame numbers.
Yeah.
Subsequently,
No
they become superhuman numbers, and there is no other explanation for it. But I don't want to see him punished perpetually.
Right.
He's one of the greatest players who ever lived on his natural merits.
You know, and Bob, even doing it now, I wanted to acknowledge something that he said. I wanted to bring it up. Again, I take no joy in beating up someone on this or keeping someone out. But I would say Fred McGriff goes in. Fred McGriff, by all accounts, goes in clean. Yeah. It took him a long time, and he did his years on the writer's ballot. Didn't even get a whiff because his numbers did not look good anymore compared to the guys who did use PEDs. So there was a cost there, and it was a cost to a generation of players that the guys who took this stuff made other players look smaller.
You're absolutely right, and I've often said this. The Players Association, which historically has been in the right, going back to Marvin Miller, but they're not perpetually in the right. And Don Fehr and Gene Orza were so dug in on this, we're not going to yield.
Yes.
And finally, Tom Glavine and some others convinced them, wait a minute, you represent the clean players too.
Right.
We're getting screwed over here. That's absolutely correct. Of course, in McGriff's case, you take away the strike in 94. Look at his numbers in 94. That was shaping up as his best season.
Yeah, he should make it
way
anyway.
over 300, going to hit like 45 homers, and he would have gotten to 500 instead of being stalled at 493.
Right. McGriff deserved to be in earlier, and I'm so happy he's going to. Bob, we'll see you next week, right? You're going to be in Cooperstown, right?
I will not. I have a family wedding, but I have recorded a bunch of fine material, which I'm sure you will enjoy.
Boy, I'm so sorry I asked that question, Bob, but I just took it for granted. Of course, I see you there every year. How can that be, Bob? All right.
I am.
I'll try,
not this year.
I'll try to come. Have fun at the wedding, and we'll see you again soon. Thank you, Bob.
See ya.